Viva Chile, viva Chile, a Chile quiero, chileno yo soy.
Welcome back to the last segment of Red Hot Chile. Glad you joined us today on YouTube. Once again, glad to have Joe Johnson out here with All About Chile and Escape Artist, and our affiliations with those two places are only making us more popular. I'm sure we love that. Already one of the most popular shows on the overseas radio network. Glad to have that standing. I hope it keeps getting better and better. Remember that if you have a question or comment for the show, you can send it to chileadvisorygroup@gmail.com. You know, we were just talking about it during the break here, a bit about the education system in Chile and why the private system has failed. Well, remember, the government provision or government operation of private enterprise or any kind of business, what we call public enterprises, is always disastrous in the sense of efficiency. It doesn't mean that they can't produce a good product. It means they do it very expensively. So you end up paying more for the same thing that the market can provide in a far better, innovative way. Now, maybe they also produce bad goods. That's also a possibility, but it's not always the case. I think you get very good research and out of universities or state universities. Doesn't mean it's at a good price. And so that's an important point. We also have to remember that private markets do not always produce good things, especially when they get involved with meddling with the state. Harvard University, Yale University, Princeton, Stanford, Chicago, they're all private universities. But they still have these strong links and ties to government, which in part is one reason they turn out such evil ideas, commonly. But that ultimately comes from the people that work there. It's not just the university itself. It's some kind of a system that runs on its own mind. It's the people that go there. It's the academic ideologues that run things that tend to make universities problematic. The private universities in Chile try to mop up the lower class demand for being able to go to university, and by lowering the test scores. Chile has this big national exam called the PSU, and you have to get a pretty high score to get into a good university. Back when the communists were here, there were only 8 universities, as I understand it, and to get into one was very difficult. You had to have a very high score, over 700, maybe 750, 850 is the max on the scaled score. And especially if you wanted a scholarship, back at that time there's all free, which means somebody else was paying for it. But it was just a subsidy to the rich, because only the rich kids who went to the best private high schools could get those kind of test scores and get in. Very rarely did you have a poor person go in. The private universities came in and offered to the poor people, the middle class, the opportunity to go to college. And to do that, they also lowered the test scores required. And they actually had some people, I know one director I worked for at one point, saying it was a remarkable transformation of these people when they first arrived to a true professional afterward. It's just nonsense. The people learned very little. They probably didn't know much more, and this is what I'd say about most of these graduates. Just a little bit more than what they knew, what a private high school graduate knows in Chile. And they get out, and then they expect to go and work in a college level job or go to graduate school. Just doesn't work well. But at any rate, the best schools in Chile still are the traditional ones, like the University of Chile, which is a state school. And as far as getting an education, well, still I have ideological problems. Same with the Catholic University. That's the other top school. Probably they compete neck and neck for being the top. And in some fields you have like medicine and veterinary science. You have the Universidad Austral, which is down in Valdivia, and that's sort of a mixed private public. Same with Federico Santa Maria here in Valparaiso, which for engineering is probably just as top. And the business school, Adolfo Ibáñez, is probably the best private example of private school. But this was a private university that started in the 50s, I think it was 54. Long before the Pinochet reforms that opened the market for education to anybody. So they're traditional schools, and they have the highest quality graduates. When they come out, I think they're very well prepared in general, those students. I mean, you can have a bad egg, but the great majority of them have good test scores when they're going. They're already bright students, and they're going to get a good job, and they have some significant knowledge when they leave. So that's where you want to study if you're here in Chile, and you head for one of those things. The other schools are mediocre at best. And they're provided by markets, but they're providing service to satisfy demand in the middle class, that the lower middle class and poor people that just couldn't afford to get into these schools before, couldn't get the test scores they needed to get in before. So it's sort of it may sound a little bit contradictory for some folks listening, but if you think about the way education is, it's not like a good or service of any other sort. I mean, my philosophy of education is that the students are not customers, where you have to please the customer in the same way that you have to please them if they're in your store buying a loaf of bread or getting their television fixed or something like that. They are customers, and primarily here in Chile, the payers are actually the parents, not the students, who need to be whipped into shape in a sense. I mean, they're there to learn something, and that requires imposing or inflicting pain upon these students that they actually have to, go out of their way to think, to work, to write, all just to earn grades and approbation from me as the professor. It's kind of like the economist that a number of decades visited China and on the Yangtze was witnessing what he thought was just a horror with one guy sitting in the back with a whip, whipping 12 guys rowing a boat, and then come to complain about it. He found out that the 12 guys in the boat had actually hired the guy with the whip to whip them, to make sure that none of the other ones would shirk their responsibility. And I think in a sense a professor is more like that. That if you're in a university, you're there to learn and do your work and not shirk, and to learn at a certain level, a certain standard, and so you get out with the requisite knowledge that you need, and certainly a skill set for doing able to do research, study, think, analyze problems logically, and so forth. And that's, I think, makes university education quite a different market than others. And here in Chile, it's just the private education system is, in one sense, a success because it's people demand it, they're providing a product, but in the market, nobody's being fooled. We understand what these people are when they get out. They're getting an easy ride, they're not learning much, their courses are of low quality, and the professors don't even bother trying to bring up the quality because the students are unable to handle it, and so they end up getting paid less. So it's kind of like a glorified junior college degree in the end for many of these private university degrees. I hope that makes it a little bit clearer. Well, I wanted to switch to a couple other things quickly here. One is that I had a letter come in, as another object lesson letter, really. This came in from Scott. He just writes in about working farmland. He says, "Good day. What more specifically is meant by substantial income from farmland? Also, what time frame delay do you have before realizing a profit? Would there be the opportunity to personally take over operations of the farm at a later date when able to reside there, Lord willing? Has there been any material alteration in the upfront purchase cost due to the strength of the U.S. dollar relative to the Chilean peso? Thank you very much for your help, Scott." Well, I'm not sure if it was somebody seeking free consulting advice or somebody writing a letter to the show trying to get me to answer on the show, which I'm going to do, or if it's just a general question about Freedom Orchard, because it's not really clear. When you write in your questions, the lesson is, could you please be clear? Let me see exactly what you're asking. What's the point? Did you want me to read it on the air? Are you looking for free consulting? That I don't generally answer. And let me, before I forget, thanks so much for the interest in the $100 consulting. That has been changed now. I offered the initial fee to be lowered from $1,000, $995 to $100 for a short time. That has now changed. This week, we're going to try to temper this demand a little bit. The fee is now $500. So just so you know, there's going to be a 1 week window here. If you hear the show before the end of May, I'll honor the $500 initial consultation fee. But at any rate, this fellow Scott, I don't really know what he's writing in about exactly and specifically, but the Freedom Orchard ideal is to be able to have some areas in which we can have mini farms sold to people that they can make a profit with. And I want to be able to do that still, and that's still in the future plan. So yes, Freedom Orchard is still somewhat paralyzed, and I'll talk about Freedom Orchard in just a minute, but just to finish up with Scott, you can normally make profits if you have good crops in the first year. You can normally get a payback completely of your investment in the first year if you get the right crops, get the right team in place, and do good work. It also depends on where your land's located. If you can do, like in Curicaví, several crops per year, that's very important. If you're down and a little bit further south, you only get one crop per year, it might not be that fast. So it depends on a number of things. So if you're looking to buy outside of Curacaví or Quillota or these places in the 5th region, or near Santiago, nearer to Santiago, well, you're going to have different criteria. It's going to depend on where you are effectively and how well you can make your profits or make your money back. Yeah, you can also take over anytime you want. If you're doing in the Freedom Orchard project, you're welcome to live on the property or manage things yourself, as long as you abide in Freedom Orchard by the organic produce creed. You're not going to allow other people to mess up the area by not planting organic crops. And there is no alteration of prices based on the fluctuation with the US dollar versus the Chilean peso. So I hope that answers some of your questions. Let's talk for just a second about Freedom Orchard. Freedom Orchard has been for a long time now paralyzed while we try to get capital. And those capital acquisition endeavors have been very fruitful. We are still very optimistic, folks, that in the next month or two, and I keep being ambiguous about this, I just don't know the exact time, but sometime in the next month or two, we will have the capital we need to actually start and go forward completely with our project. And we're looking forward to that day very much. In fact, I'd like to just be full-time doing that, besides the radio show and the other little things I do, like writing journal articles and newspaper columns. I'd like to be able to go forth and push our Freedom Orchard project and really make a great libertarian society here. We had some people coming down. I won't mention the names, but I'll mention the first name, not the last. Bob and William, and there was another one, Carl, all here really just, especially the first two, just trying to find out, is John Coben just another scoundrel or charlatan, another Berwick and Johnson kind of show, or is he on the level like Simon Black is, or is he really a libertarian? And I think after spending some time with them, he went away very convinced that I am the real deal. I am not just trying to take sell libertarian stuff and then take off or not fulfill. They told me how desperately, how very, very discouraged they were when they went to see the Galt's Gulch thing. They think he's a scam artist. It's going to fall apart. It's giving a bad name for libertarianism. Folks, I agree. That's why I bring it up on the show. I don't think it's a good deal that for anybody to have those folks up there ripping people off and making claims that simply are not true about Galt's Gulch, Chile. And I'm glad Simon is out of the market so that we can go forward with Freedom Orchard and make it the premier place here in Curacaví or in central Chile. So we are still working towards that end. I had other people, in fact, stop us in just driving up the road while we were up at Freedom Orchard. Where's Galt's Gulch, Chile? And I showed him where it is, and he went on to tell us about how he had bad experience up there. He stayed up there for a couple of weeks and realized that it was just a sham. He was a scam artist, and the sign looks good. He's got a couple of nice new signs up that he put up, but it's just not working out. It's just not a viable project, and it's just built on a lot of dishonesty. Well, let me close the show. We're actually coming towards the end here of just saying, why are you guys still up there? In the blog, I published 55 reasons why you should be in Chile, why the grass is really not green on the other side, despite all its defects here. And there are a good couple dozen pretty serious defects with Chile, too. Read that blog entry and think about it carefully. But ask yourself, why are you still up there? You say, well, I don't have enough money to leave. I got a bad job, or I got, well, you might still have that problem when you're here, too, but why suffer up there with all the other inconveniences? If you have money, why in the world are you there? You have money, you can come and live anywhere you want. It's cheaper to live here, the taxes are lower here, and you can have a good life in Chile. Think about that today, folks. Why am I still in the home country? What is holding me back? Am I really serious about helping liberty go forth in the world? This is our Alamo. This is our place to make it happen. You've been listening to Red Hot Chili. This is Dr. John Coben on the Overseas Radio Network, and we'll look forward to having you back again next week. Bye now.